Hey guys, thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. We're super glad that you are here, and we are super excited to be making some lace pumpkins with our folk art paint. I love how these look. I know that we are super excited about sharing this with you guys. Yeah, if you guys have any questions at all, be sure to leave them in the chat, and I will relay them to Kirsten if I can't answer them myself. And yeah, without taking up too much more of you guys' time, I guess I'll turn it over to Kirsten.
Steven, thanks so much. Okay, guys, I'm so excited for you guys to be here today. So we are going to make these beautiful pumpkins. We wanted to do something. We have so many different pumpkins floating around out there on social media for the holidays. Some are specific to Halloween. Lots of them are specific to fall that you can keep out even longer, a longer season. And this was just something we really just wanted to do, something that's a little bit unique, that's a little bit of a different kind of a different technique that we've done using Mod Podge with FolkArt and just these beautiful jewel colors. So today is really a lot about techniques. Whenever I teach the class, we will skip a little bit on dry time. We will just make sure that you guys get all of the instructions that you need to make this exact project there at home. So first, what I want to do is show you guys what we're going to need for today's class. So I'm going to use 3 different size pumpkins. And you guys, I always say, if you want to do 3 little pumpkins and maybe a grouping like this is going on your dining room table or on your mantle, use whatever size pumpkin is great for you. If you want to do 3 little ones, same techniques would work perfectly. So don't feel like you have to have these exact sizes, but we've got 3 different size pumpkins. And then we are using FolkArt acrylic paint. So we are using just these colors with Wicker white. So always Wicker white. And then our 3 colors for today is teal, yellow, ochre, and purple. And these are, again, are just FolkArt acrylic paints. And with the white, we're going to do a little bit of color mixing. And that's what will allow us to get, let me see, I think it's best if you guys see it on the purple. We're going to mix a little bit of color just to get the same value of color, but still get that shading and highlighting. Then we're going to have that basic brush set, and we are only going to use today those larger brushes in the brush set. So there's 3 larger flat brushes, depending on the size of your pumpkin. Those are the brushes that we're going to focus on today. You're going to need scissors. I've got some small and some large, but whatever is more comfortable for you guys, not a lot of cutting. And then Mod Podge. And Mod Podge, as you guys know, comes in a million different formulas. I'm using the matte just because I prefer the matte, but if you happen to have satin or gloss at home, again, know that your project will be just as perfect. So always some paper towels, always some water. These are what I'm going to use to mix paint and as my palette. And then what I'm using is just different trims and lace pieces, whether it be pieces that you have laying around. This one is really cute. It's just more long and skinny, almost like a stripe. This one is a flower pattern. If you guys can see that, maybe if I hold it up, I'm going to cut those flowers apart to create the look of this purple one. So really what we're doing is we're just adding dimension using the trim and the lace icons to the pumpkins. Okay, so with that, oh, one thing I want you guys to have is I am going to do a little bit of blow drying. The reason I'm doing that is because, as you guys know, this class is about an hour, and I just want to get to the end of the techniques. So to do that, I'm going to speed up my dry time. So have a blow dryer handy if you guys want to do that as well. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is simply base coat our pumpkins. And I'm going to use just these little foam plates, but a plate, a ceramic plate, even palette paper, whatever is what you like to use to mix your paints. So first, I'm going to just put the purple, and they're big pumpkins. So I'm going to use a good bit of FolkArt. That's the purple. And then what I'm going to do with each jewel tone color is I am going to mix a little bit of white to make a lighter shade, so that when we go back and do the details on our lace, it's with the actual color in the bottle. So this is probably 3 parts of the purple and 1 part of the white. But I always tell people, have fun with this. If you want a really soft lavender, mix more white. If you want just a little bit lighter purple, add just a little bit of the wicker white. But you cannot mix a wrong color. So all I'm doing is getting a lighter shade of what comes right out of the bottle. I'm going to add a little bit more purple because I don't want it too lavender. You can see how beautiful the FolkArt matte acrylics mix together. And I'm just using my largest flat brush. And all I'm going to do, and these pumpkins at Michael's, they have so many, they have every size imaginable. And you can get them in white, you can get them in orange. I just happen to have white in this size and orange in this size, but any one would work. And all we are going to do is a solid base coat on our medium-sized pumpkin. You don't want it too thick because dry time, again, is something we want to make sure it's dry before we move on to our next step. But you can see how beautiful that coverage is using the matte acrylic.
It really does not take a lot of paint at all.
I know, right? And look at how beautiful that is. I'm peeking over at the monitor. I love to see how great it looks. It's rich and creamy and really thick and has so much pigment in it that to base coat is really easy. I'm not adding any water, and really because all that will do is thin the paint and make the base coat a little bit transparent. So no water, I have a dry brush, but just a nice even base coat. I'm going to also do that stem.
Susan says she also loves that color.
I'm so glad. We're seeing so much purple. Obviously for Halloween, I think always we see a little purple in with Halloween, but we've seen a lot of it in fall this year, which is really kind of nice.
Kirsten, do you have to paint the stem?
No, you don't have to. In fact, I forget what class I did, but we did pumpkins. They kept all of their stems plain because they wanted it to look a little bit more organic. And then another lady in a different class painted them all gold just because that was the home decor color that she liked best for her home right now. So no, absolutely not. You could leave it natural, which would look really nice, or you could paint it any color. Okay, so I've got a good base coat on there. And just so you guys have time to base coat it completely, what I am going to do is I am going to dry this with the blow dryer. Any questions, Stephen, before I turn on that loud blow dryer?
No, I think we're good.
And you guys know, I know she mentioned that in the beginning, these will be back up where you can access these starting tomorrow. So acrylic paint dries super fast. This would probably be dry in about 30 minutes and we could do our next step, but we just really want to be able to get from start to finish in an hour. So that's why I'm using the blow dryer for the dry time. Okay, no questions, here goes. Okay, so I'm going to set that one over here. And then I'm just going to show you guys, the reason I'm just showing you how to base coat each one is really just so you guys can see the mixing of paint, how we're adding white to each color to get a lighter color. Okay, so using a different plate, I am going to put that yellow ochre on there. And again,
what was the name of what was the name of the purple color that you just used?
The purple is just purple.
Just purple.
Yep. And then this beautiful color is the yellow ochre. and then always mixing it with the wicker white. And the reason, again, for anyone that maybe got on late, the reason we're mixing it with a little bit of white is because you can see part of this technique is going back in and getting that really pretty, almost shading and highlighting by dry brushing over that textured lace. And to do that, we have to have a dark and a light of that same color. So that's why we're mixing a little bit of white just to lighten that value a little bit. Okay, so my littlest pumpkin just happens to be orange, whether yours is orange or white. And I'm just going to base coat him with that beautiful gold color. Again, even over that dark orange, you can see how beautiful the coverage is. This would be really pretty with that brown stem. I might steal that idea and do it on this one.
Go for it.
I think your pumpkin should only require one coat, which is really nice. If they happen to require 2 coats, just make sure you let it dry completely in between coats and apply your second coat. Look, I am. Not only because it's easier, but I also like the brown stem. I'm going to copy and keep that natural. So there's my second pumpkin. Just a really soft, see if you guys can tell. It's just a little bit lighter, not too much.
So
But
Kirsten,
also, oh, go ahead.
this is a pretty good question that Nicole just asked. If you were to have to do multiple coats, why would you need for it to dry in between them?
When it's dry in between coats, you just get a smoother finish. As it's drying, it almost gets, I'm not sure if tacky is the right word, but it almost gets a little bit tacky, and you would hate to create almost like a messed up base coat by doing it on a almost dry first coat. So that way, if it's totally dry, you're painting on a smooth surface for your second coat.
So if it's not totally dry, there could be some clumps that might get stuck.
You could, yeah, because
Yeah.
it could lift where it's a little bit tacky. So you just
Mhm.
want to have a dry first coat before you apply the second. Okay, so any questions? I'm going to hit this one with the blow dryer now too.
Go for it.
Okay. All right, there's our second one. Now we have purple and we have gold. And then for our biggest one, this is this beautiful teal. This is actually one of my favorite colors. And the same thing, I'm going to add just enough wicker white to lighten that color. You've got the same beautiful value. It's just one shade lighter. I want it a little bit lighter, just so you guys can see the beautiful dry brush and all the details after we do the Mod Podge. Okay, and now our big guy is this beautiful teal color. These would be so pretty on your mantle or your fireplace with like some sunflowers for fall.
Just how you
And you
have it
know,
right now with the blue contrasting on that orange, you can really see how vibrant that color is.
right? It's just so
Mhm.
beautiful because that orange is a really dark color and
Mhm.
that blue is going on there just beautifully. I know we're just base coating, which is so simple, but people always have such good questions, even for these really basic techniques. Again, I'm not using any water, and really just because one, the paint will dry faster, the base coat will be easier to apply, it will go on smoother. There's just no need. So when you wash your brushes in between colors, just dry it as good as you can on a paper towel to remove all the excess water. The coverage is amazing because this pumpkin is pretty much the size of a really big watermelon. And we haven't even used not even half of the 2-ounce FolkArt acrylic. So you really have so much paint.
And Kirsten, when you finished base coating, maybe hold the original teal bottle up next to the pumpkin or even the palette, just so people can see how different the wicker white made it.
Absolutely. All right, let me get right there and then I will do just that. And you guys definitely, if you want, because these would be gorgeous in a really soft pastel blue or in a really soft lavender, add as much white to these colors to match your home. Because these projects would be absolutely beautiful if the colors are just a little bit different on each one. I'm going to sneak down there and get the bottom. Okay. So let me actually, what if I do this, Stephen? I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that teal, just a little, and I'll actually brush it out. Would you guys be able to, oh yeah, you can totally see that. So just the difference, very, very slight, but you can see just enough difference to get all that contrast at the end of our projects.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm actually going to leave my stem brown on this one as well. I really like that. Okay, I'm going to blow dry this one. Any questions before I do that?
Nope, I think you're good.
Okay, now we're okay, so now you have these beautiful, let's see if I set them right there. You have these beautiful jewel tone pumpkins, just base coated in a solid coat. Okay, so now what we're doing is using Mod Podge to add some dimension. So what I've got both this, almost like this long skinny cording. I've got that for one. I've got this one that is a cute little flower pattern. And what I'm going to do is just cut this apart. So whatever your lace or your trim is that you're using, maybe lay it out on your pumpkin. Do you want to have just single elements that you scatter all around? Do you want to create a pattern? Like this, a lace like this, that's more of a trim. You could run it horizontal. You could run it vertical. You could do just so much with it. So almost look at it as it's something that you can cut apart and make a pattern out of. So what I'm going to do is, because I love these little soft floral elements, is I am just going to just kind of cut where they are connected. If you're working with lace, some lace has a flower pattern, you could cut that out. If you're working with even like some vintage doilies would be beautiful. You could use those as a whole doily and put it on a section of your pumpkin. That would be really beautiful. But I'm just cutting these out. Not perfect. I'm not going in and trimming them, but just separating the little elements.
Okay, question for you, Kirsten, that I don't know if you would know the answer to this off the top of your head, but maybe we could find
Uh-oh,
out.
a tricky one. I don't like a tricky one.
Do you typically buy the whole spool, or do you think Michael's would sell like lace by the foot or the inch maybe?
You know what? I was actually in Michael's this week and they have a lot of different options. I noticed like even in their wearable section, they have things that are just called fabric appliques, which might just be a cute little finished, almost like a patch of flowers. And then they also have in like maybe their ribbon or their trim section, they have it where it is on the spool. And I noticed that they have where you do buy the whole spool, but now that they have all those beautiful fabrics that they cut now, they do have it where you could buy it by the yard. So they've got a lot of different options.
Okay.
Okay, so I just cut apart a bunch of little elements, and using Mod Podge is just so easy. So I am using matte, again, just because it's the finish that I happen to like the best. But if you have satin or if you have gloss, they're all going to work perfectly. And what I'm going to do is so I know I'm going to scatter this randomly. I'm not going to create a line or a stripe. I'm just going to almost polka dot this pumpkin. So what I'm going to do is paint the Mod Podge on the pumpkin. I'm not going to completely coat it because it would dry too fast, but just an area where I know I'm going to apply my first little applique. And I'm just going to stick that on there, press that down, and then remove. You don't want a bunch of extra. So I'm just going to brush off any extra, kind of top coating it. But I don't want to saturate all those little nooks and crannies because then it will take a really long time to dry. I'm applying a top coat, but again, not completely saturating it because it will fill in all those details and you want to be able to accent those with our next step, our next color. So then I'm just going to move to the next section of the pumpkin and base coat it with Mod Podge and apply another little flower. And you're almost top coating just the edges, just to kind of mash it down and make sure it's on there really good. And just moving all around the pumpkin, applying these little appliques.
And yeah, just something to stress is that Mod Podge will dry clear. Even if you're seeing it white right now, it's not going to stay that way. So.
Absolutely. It works as a glue. It's also a sealer. And what it'll do is it will just permanently attach that fabric applique to your pumpkin. Yeah, all that won't matter. Be doing that beautiful dry brush technique. So it will cover up all of these brush strokes that we're creating with the Mod Podge. Right now, we're really just using it as a glue to attach these elements. You can see it has a really thick consistency and it's a little bit tacky right away. So that's why it's working so good. That's not moving around and sliding all over your pumpkin. Let's see, I'm gonna put one more on there. And then I'm gonna show you guys the technique of dry brushing those, base coating those, and just getting all of those beautiful details. Okay. So I've got that on there. You can see, so this is the one I just did. Again, I didn't use a ton of Mod Podge, just enough to get all those edges down really smooth, top coated a little bit. But you can see over here, the guy I did first, it's not completely dry, but you can see how quick it dries, which makes it just such a wonderful formula for doing projects like this. Okay, I'm gonna dry this a little bit with the hairdryer while you guys apply all of your flowers. Almost dry. We didn't top coat it. So all of those little details are not filled in with Mod Podge. Okay. So what I've done, you would apply lace or trim or doilies to all of your pumpkins. So I've got this one that I've already applied it to, and that is dry. And that was just this really pretty trim. It's almost like a cording. And I applied that going up and down just to accent kind of the natural lines of the pumpkin. Okay, so once your lace is on there, or your appliques or your doilies, once those are on there and your Mod Podge is completely dry, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to those same paper plates. Actually, I'm going to get another one because they're little. And I am going to use the color exactly as it is in the bottle. I cleaned my brush in the water, and this is where I always want to use a brush that's as dry as possible. So I'm just drying it off on a paper towel, removing as much water as I can. Okay, so that same color that we used, this is the yellow ochre. I am going to base coat first just the trim area, because I don't want to re-base coat my entire pumpkin, because you can see the color is much darker. So I'm just going to base coat at first the applique or the trim. I'm going to pounce paint, just making sure I fill in all those little details of the lace. And then I'm going to move to the next section. That's the lace or the fabric or the doily. This would even work if you had colored trim, because we're painting it, whether you had like a soft pink vintage trim that you loved the pattern, but the color didn't match. Whatever color it is going away because you're painting it with the FolkArt. So any trim would work. It wouldn't have to be white. Okay, so you can see those areas are base coated, but because I don't want that stripe pattern, what I'm gonna do, using that same color, I'm gonna remove most of the paint on a paper towel. And then I'm almost just gonna dust the area between the two stripes, just lightly going over that lighter yellow base coat. And all that's doing is kind of blending the two areas. Picking up a little bit of paint when you need it, but then removing it on your paper towel.
Kirsten,
Just-
I wanted to share an idea with you that Ginger just had.
Okay, let's hear
It
it.
says that she's adding glow in the dark paint to the lace. What do you think about that?
Oh, go on, Ginger. That's a really good idea.
I love
So
that.
that is a great idea. So just her applique areas will glow in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
We have very creative people out there. That is really going to look great. Don't forget to hashtag and share it, because we love to get on there and see all of the projects that you guys do.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just base coated that next applique. And then where those edges are just really kind of messy, where the light and the dark yellow meet, I'm just drying or removing most of the paint on a paper towel and just almost polishing or dusting, just to soften that line between the two colors. Can you guys see that? Sometimes it's hard to see. Oh yeah, I hold it
Yeah,
up.
I can see that.
You can see where it just kind of softens, distresses it a little bit. Almost a real soft vintage look. I'm going to do this last stripe. You can see like I'm really brushing the paint in there and pouncing in all the nooks and crannies, and that Mod Podge works wonderful. It's not moving or lifting at all. It's really a fabulous glue.
Somebody said that they're using fake leaves instead of lace. I like that idea too.
Again, people have really great ideas. I know fake leaves would be beautiful. So you can see the dry brush just really combines the two colors, the two values of that same color, and gives you all that really nice dimension. Okay, so that's one of them. And then what I'm going to do for the purple, actually, I'll just use the same palette, because then you guys can see the difference in the dark and the light, where we mixed wicker white and where we didn't. So my Mod Podge is completely dry. Those little fabric appliques are all on there. And then you can see the difference. Let me hold that up. Just a
Kirsten,
really subtle difference.
here's a question from Nicole.
Okay.
Could you use the color right out of the bottle to paint the pumpkin and then mix the white color in for the lace, sort of like opposite what you've done?
Yep, absolutely. And that would be as beautiful. It would just be a little bit different. Yeah, that would be beautiful. The main reason I'm just doing it tone on tone instead of, because you could do it solid purple and then you could antique it with like a stain, or you could do it with just white out of the bottle if you wanted some really strong contrast. So this technique, you could do so many different color palettes. I just really loved the tone on tone and able to mix the values with just using the white. So same thing that I did with the yellow, I'm just base coating with the purple right out of the bottle, each little section where I applied the applique, kind of pouncing the paint on there. So it really covers all of those details. And it looks like a big polka dot until we go in there and do the dry brush.
Kirsten, do you think that this would work with foam pieces, maybe?
Like a foam piece, like in the kids section, like maybe those craft shapes? Is that
Yeah,
what-
like they've got
that
like
what-
little Halloween foam shapes that you can use for crafting, maybe something like that. Do you think this would
Yeah,
work for it?
I mean, I know the Mod Podge would work. I know it would apply. I know FolkArt would paint it. I think the biggest thing is you just wouldn't have all those, those details like we do in these lace appliques, but that's okay. It would just almost look like a silhouette rather than, a solid silhouette shape rather than all these details, but it would be as beautiful. Yeah. You wouldn't want anything too thick, your foam piece, just because you would want it to lay flat on your pumpkin. But there's so many different things that you could use. You could use yarn and you could make your own pattern. I think we have I'll have to show you guys. Behind me on the right, we have a pumpkin done with yarn, and all they did is apply yarn with the Mod Podge to write a word. So that is a really unique way to personalize a pumpkin with Mod Podge and FolkArt paint. So with the purple out of the bottle, I'm doing the same thing. I'm loading my brush and removing most of it on a paper towel, not adding any water. And I'm just dusting or polishing the areas in between the two purple colors to distress it, to soften it, and just to get all the details on those fabric pieces. Like dried flowers that aren't real pressed flowers, but maybe in the scrapbook section, Michael's has such beautiful, I guess they're paper appliques that would work also because they're dimensional, and that would add texture to some fall pumpkins, and that would be really pretty as well. And then just dry brushing it. And then if you wanted a little bit more contrast, and this is just, you know, based on what you like, what look you want, once you've done the dry brush, it's harder to see with the darker colors. Once you've done the dry brush and you get all of these details, you could go in to just a little bit of wicker white. Let's see if we can do it on the purple. I'm not going to clean my brush, so a little bit of purple will be in there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that wicker white, but remove it on the paper towel and just really lightly brush over those fabric pieces. And you can see it hits just the high parts and it almost creates like a natural highlight. That might be hard to see. Let's see if I hold that up.
It's showing up for me, but yeah, go ahead and hold it up. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of white on there. Oh, there's some, just so you guys can see it. And just depending on your preference, if you like that look or how much white you added to your base coat. Just a really fun way to have a unique look. All right, so that is our techniques: base coating, mixing two colors. So we really used we used 7 colors, but we only used 4 colors of FolkArt, but we worked with 6 different colors. So mixing a little bit of color was one of the techniques, using Mod Podge to apply dimensional pieces to your pumpkin, and then dry brush painting, which just gives you this really soft vintage look. So really some great techniques that we learned today that you could apply to any of your projects. So Stephen, do we have any questions?
Somebody is just asking where they can watch this video later, and I'm just going to drop that in the chat real quick.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and I think they're up tomorrow and they stay up. So you can reference these and really follow these same techniques on so many different projects.
Yeah, you can take a lot of this with you and use it other places for sure.
Absolutely. So you guys, thanks for joining us on today's craft break. And don't forget, we love to see what you guys have crafted. So put them on #PlaidCrafts or #MakeItWithMichaels. And thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.